I am preparing my potter's wheel for throwing by putting a bat mate underneath my bat. It helps to keep the bat from shaking around, and centering my clay on top.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a colander. I'm going to start off by throwing a bowl. Because I'm making a colander, I like to have the rim a little extra thick. I can do that by compressing the rim and giving it a little more substance, or I could do that by rolling the rim. And I want to show you how to roll the rim. So when I roll it, I thin it out just a little bit more. And make sure that you have enough water where your hands aren't sticking. You thin it and then just absolutely flip it over. The rolled rim gives you a lot of strength because it gives you more surface area that will just add a lot of strength. Now, if you have trapped air in there, you can always take a needle tool and pierce it as it begins to dry, which I might wait until mine's a little less sticky to pierce it. And then I will be trimming it similar to a bowl with a couple of differences, which I will show you when it's leather hard.
And here I'm getting the wheel ready for trimming the leather hard colander. I'm putting my splash panes on, and the white thing on top is the give and grip, and I put the sliders in, make sure that it's level, I'm wiping it off, and just getting it all ready for trimming.
Trimming my colander will be very similar to trimming a bowl. I establish the location of the foot based on the angle change on the inside. Now with a colander, I of course don't want the foot to be too narrow because I am going to be using this, maybe to dump pasta in or vegetables, so I do want it to be nice and sturdy. I am going to be using the give and grip. Oh, and if you see that I have something written on here, this is size for Pacifica. In my classroom here at school, I have two different types of wheels, so I have to have two different types of give and grips sized for the different wheels. Just a little caution, always make sure that your give and grip is level. You can look at the edge of mine and see that it's level. If your give and grip is not level, like if it's stuck on a bat pin, it'll rock and then your foot will not be centered.
So as I begin trimming, remember that you always go straight down from the bottom of the pot to create the exterior of the foot. You always want to go straight down on the outside and then again straight down on the inside. By doing that, you should have a foot which is even. You don't want to go in from the outside, go down from the top.
So I'm going to point out a couple things about trimming. When I trim a foot on a colander, I often like to have it angled so I can actually pick it up. So I do kind of angle it back in slightly. And I try to make sure that I'm not going too thick. I want my colander to be nice and thin because when I make the holes going through it, I want it to be easy to glaze. And if it's too thick, the walls are too thick at the holes, then it's not so easy to glaze. So I'm just taking a little bit more off right here. Okay, I do have a lot of cut grog, so I'm going to take a rib and compress that back down. Okay, now there's another thing that I like to do when trimming a colander. I like to put kind of like little notches, 3 little notches, so it's basically sitting on 3 feet. The reason for that is when you put it in your sink and you're running water through it, by notching it allows the water to flow out a little bit more evenly. So let me just compress my foot and get it nice and smooth, and then I'll be ready to do that. So I'm going to mark it off. Okay, and then here we go. All right, so I actually kind of marked it into 6th at first. I'll move that over. There we go. Now I'm going to get an exacto knife and I'm going to do a little bit of trimming. So I've basically marked where I want the center of the notch to be. Now I'm going to make a reference mark on either side. And then I'm going to cut, and I like to cut going down from the top to the bottom of the notch. Sometimes when you come up that way, if you're not careful, you can chip that. So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to cut down from the top into the bottom of the notch. And it certainly is possible to do it the other way, but again, I have tendency to notice more chipping when I cut going up like that. All right. Now for creating my holes, I just like to use a drill bit. At home I have a much smaller little driver that I use. Here I'm just going to use the drill that I have at school. Let's see.
Now, keep in mind when you are drilling, your piece really should be leather hard and things should be coming off in nice, clean little ribbons. If it's too soft, it's going to make quite a mess for you. And I'm trying to regularly space these as I go around.
Now, when you cut it when it's leather hard, the ribbons should come off nicely. If it's too wet, it's gonna kind of gum up and stick, and if it's too dry, it could chip. Okay, my holes are cut, but you can see that I have quite a bit of debris that's still in there. When it's leather hard like this, it should knock off nicely. Again, if you're finding that you're cutting it and it is not cutting well for you, if it's gummed up a little too much, you might just want to let it dry a little bit more, get it to a nice even moisture. Okay, so I knocked my debris off the inside. Now I need to check the exterior. All right, my debris is now out. Last thing I'm going to do is I like to make sure that I have nothing that is a little bit rough around my holes. I like to make sure that it is nice and smooth.
Once all the holes are cleaned, I dry it slowly and then I will bisque fire that. Once the colander has been bisque fired, it's now ready for glazing. The first step in preparation for glazing is I will be waxing the bottom of the foot ring. So using a wax brush, I always try to make sure that my students are being careful to use only the brushes that I have labeled for wax. I have a location of wax brushes in a container. You will apply the wax to the foot, and I'm going up the interior of the foot, and on the exterior I'm going up about 1/8 of an inch. So I wax up somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch to make sure that the glaze does not come down too close. And then on the inside of those little notches, the 3 notches, I will wax up about 1/8 of an inch. I'm using the Axner Wax Resist, which is a really nice water-soluble wax resist with hot water and soap. It washes out more easily than real wax does. So here I have a smaller colander and I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to be waxing the bottom of the foot. I wax up on the inside of the foot and I'm waxing up about 1/8 of an inch on that little notch to make sure that the glaze will not get stuck there. The main reason I tell my kids not to use normal glaze brushes, but to use the wax brushes, is they don't wash them out well, and sometimes it could contaminate a glaze. Now, again, note that I'm going up about 1/8 of an inch from the very base of the foot because I want to make sure that the glaze stops about 1/8 of an inch before it hits, say, like the table or the kiln shelf when it fires. And be careful with wet wax when you go to set it on something. You don't want to transfer wax to something else. And also be careful not to drip your wax on your pot or you will resist glaze. Now I also have a small little plate. This is intended to go underneath the foot ring of the colander. And for the plate foot ring, it's a more shallow foot ring, but I am going up the sides, the inside and the outside of the foot ring.
Dipping the colander, and just like mixing up any of my glazes, you want to mix it up very vigorously. Because the colander has holes, which I do not want to fill up with glaze, I did just rinse it. I usually don't rinse right before glazing, but with a colander or something that has holes as a pass through that I need to clean out, I often rinse that shortly before I dip it. That way it will allow it to not absorb quite as much glaze. So I have already mixed this, and now I'm going to just dip it in, pull it back out. Remember, turn it upside down, and I gently knock it on the edge of the bucket to encourage the excess glaze to drip up off the top edge. I keep it upside down to keep the glaze from running into the bottom, because of course if it runs into the bottom, it'll get quite thick. Now, these holes are, kind of big, so they should be easy to clean out, but if you have any maybe where you have a lot of glaze that's trapped in the hole, just take a needle tool and go through and kind of clean it out. I've got some where it's settled in there. You just don't want to have too much glaze in a hole. I have a few scratch marks that I like to touch up with my fingers from the tongs. And I have a small colander. I'm going to do the same way. And I do have a small plate that will go underneath the edge, or it'll go underneath the foot of the colander. That way if I go to set it on my kitchen counter and I have wet strawberries in it, the water will collect on the little plate instead of on my kitchen counter. Once it's dry enough that you can handle it, then you want to make sure that you're cleaning off all the wax. Make sure you don't have any glaze and spots where it's going to run or stick in the kiln. And then it'll be ready for firing. And also double check your holes to see if there's anything that you need to clean out. And to finish up the video, I just wanted to show you what the colanders looked like as they came out of the kiln. And again, you can see the little notched foot does provide a nice visual accent, but also a nice functional aspect, because when you allow the water to drain through, the foot doesn't hold it underneath there, it allows it to drain. And of course I did make the extra little plate for the larger colander. I really need to make a small one for the smaller colander, and I didn't think about it in time. Oh, and I thought I would also show you that, of course, colanders do not only have to be circular if you make them on the wheel. This was altered, and so it's in a heart shape. I was just getting ready to put this one in the bisque kiln, but I wanted to show you that you can certainly make colanders of many shapes, many sizes. And I hope you enjoyed that, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to see some more videos on working with clay.